All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 3. It's Thanksgiving. Yay! Aren't you guys excited? It's going to be great. As you can see behind me, I don't have the delightful black backdrop that usually does a fantastic job of making me look like I have no hair because my hair is magically melds with the black. And that is because my Wi-Fi went down at my house. So what did I do? I had to problem solve. I had to communicate with my peers what was actually happening. And then I needed to come up with a plan. My plan was to run over to my husband's office and use his Wi-Fi. And it's something that you have to do for your business. You have to, if something happens, you have to make a plan. You have to communicate. Maybe your peers will have a great idea. Chef Jonathan and Chef Gregory both did a fabulous job of trying to be very creative, but my brick house is a black vortex of signal death. So some of the stuff just wouldn't necessarily work. But it's great to have that feedback and to say, like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I was like, okay, I tried this. It's not working because I'm actually like texting you right now from outside of my house because I don't have any signal inside my house. So those type of things. But it's also communicating to you guys too. Something went wrong. You're like, why is there no awesome black backdrop? Now you know the information too. So it's always keeping people informed and communicating and problem solving. This is the beauty of entrepreneurship. And to communicate how everybody's doing on this past week's assignment, I'm going to hand it over to Chef Jonathan.
Well, thank you. I loved what I saw this week. A lot of really great research done. A lot of .gov websites, which I love to see because like we were talking about last week, those are immediately recognizable as being more reliable sources of information, especially when you're talking about legality, what the rules and regulations are from a legal standpoint for your business. One of the more consistent stumbling points I saw was just giving a link instead of that step-by-step process of how to get that permit or license or inspection done, really giving me more information. Like we were talking about last week, if you just give a link and somebody like a potential investor or a banker prints that out, it doesn't do them any good and they just feel like you don't know what you're doing. Whereas if you give that link and then spell out for them right there on the piece of paper exactly what they need, what you are going to have to do, it shows that you've done the research, you've done the legwork, and you're ready to move forward with this concept. So as a part of your business plan, that's really important. How about you, Chef Greg? What do you see?
Same thing. I did see some great work. I think all of you have amazing concepts. Each one's a little bit different. Each one is in a different area. Just remember when you're doing the assignments to make it specific to your area and to your concept. So the information that you would need to present your business plan. So if Chef Jonathan, Rachel, and I all wanted to kind of make like our own little restaurant group, and we're going to open the same restaurant in Colorado, Nebraska, and Delaware, we could have the same food and the same concept. However, our zoning, our fire laws, our buildings, all of that would still be different. So our business plan would need specific ones for Delaware, Nebraska, and for Colorado. But overall, I think you guys did awesome work. It is sometimes overwhelming to click on a government website and read through it. However, though, it's also now's the time to learn it, and I think everybody did a great job.
Do you guys have any questions for us about this last week's assignment? Now's your chance. Gonna move on.
Yes, please. All right.
I don't have any questions, but I thought it was pretty interesting looking all that stuff up and figuring out what was what. And so I enjoyed the assignment.
Did anything surprise you when you were looking it up, Manny?
I think some of the zoning in this little town that I live in is because it's such a little town, where you can build and how big you can build. That kind of stuff was kind of surprising. But Minnesota, I like, the taxes and all that other stuff. So yeah, it was all pretty interesting.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah, zoning is fun, and it changes no matter where you go. Everywhere likes to do things differently, and zoning is one of those things that's completely radically different everywhere you go, and it's always a lot of research when you move to a new location.
All right, well, let's get started with this week's stuff since you guys are good to go. Week 3. First off, we have next week's assignment is going to be due 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then next week's live session, we'll go back to normal. We're going to be on Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So we will go back to normal. So remember that. As you can see, you're going to have a quiz about it at the end of the session. Let's see how many of you guys remember. Right? Yay! So, labor. I love this discussion because everybody has that wonderful dream and they want to spend their entire life doing this thing because it's not a job, it's a lifestyle, and it's everything that you want. And then you end up there working nonstop, 100 hours a week, which is really not possible, and you're tired and you didn't schedule properly. You don't have enough staff. You don't have enough labor to help you with this labor of running your establishment. So it's really, really important to make sure that you know what you need. You have to be proactive. A lot of times people just react where they're like, oh my God, we have this catering I totally forgot about that's due like on Saturday. I need everybody here. And you're telling people 3 days before that you have this catering due. And that's not okay. You have to make certain that you prepare. You have to look like a month out. What's your 2 weeks out looking? You have to do that, especially to make sure that you are going to have enough staff. Now, how many people have seen it? The department stores, they're hiring for seasonal hires. When did they start? When did you guys see that they started? There's not too many of you, so you gotta sneak
I'd say towards the end of October.
Towards the end of October, and what were they preparing for?
For the holidays.
Yep, for the holidays, got Black Friday,
Right. Yeah.
all of those, the big holiday push, right? It's going to be the same thing, especially if you're in an area that has a seasonality. If I'm up in the ski resorts up in Vail or Aspen or where Chef Janet lives up in the mountains, I'm going to want to make sure that I am actually hiring employees early enough where I don't get stuck. I'm not going to start hiring people in January, right? You're going to start looking for people sooner than that. You need to, in order to make certain that you're actually going to make it and be okay and have a break, because that's the key. You need to have a break. What happens if you do get hurt? Well, do you have enough people that can actually cover you? That's something that people don't think about. They're like, well, I'll just work, I'm just going to work 80 hours and it'll be fine. And I'll just do this shift and like 7 days a week and it'll totally be great. And then we don't need any other help and we're fine. But then what if, you're flipping a pancake and the pancake batter ends up going directly into your eye, which actually happened to me. And then you now it's, oh crap, because this was before glasses. The glasses are thanks to my son being a ninja and trying to take me down. But that pancake batter went directly into my eye and I was like, oh, this is great. And then I look and I'm like, yeah, I have 2 staff on vacation right now. There's not enough of us for me to be able to, be down. Like, I have to work like one with one eye, and that's not good. You can't do that, right? You can't have those type of scenarios, and you don't want to have those type of scenarios. You always want to try to be as prepared as you can be. And then that also means you have to do your research. Don't you love it? I feel like this is going to end up being like a constant thing in this class. Every single PowerPoint slide will have this little guy right here. Right there, because you have to know your laws and regulations. You have to know them for your area. It's very, very important because, there's federal and then there's state. Federal, they set the standard. This is the standard and this is the bare minimum that you can do. And then your state may go above that, right? They may say, okay, well, this is what federal said, but now I'm going to go above and beyond. And that's true for, a great example is minimum wage, right? How much is the federal minimum wage right now? Anybody know? Anybody?
Is it $7.86 or something like that? $7 and change?
Yeah, it's something like $7 and change. For tip employees, so your wait staff, how much is that? For tipped employees, it's like pennies. It's like $2.95. It's not that great. But so I live in Colorado. I'm going to look to see what my minimum wage is, right? And you can go to the Department of Labor for your state and it'll tell you all this stuff, right? It's a great, great way, and it's a great tool to use that you'll be able to look at starting your own business. It tells you unemployment guides, recruiting and hiring, tax credits, all of this great information, and each state has their own version, right? It'll even tell you how unemployment rate's looking, what your labor market information is. And then you can even go to labor law and stats. You can see workers' comp. It shows me right here that my minimum wage, it used to be $10.20. Colorado passed the law to make it $12 by 2020. That's right, Jeff, Jonathan? It was $12 by 2020? Yes, yes. And so in 2019, it is going to $11.10. Our tipped employees make $8.08. That's a lot better than the $2.95 that you have to see in like the federal, $2.95. And some places, they just say, yeah, that's going to be good enough. That state, they may just have it be $2.95. But this type of website is a great tool to use to find that information. And if you're wondering, how about the federal? What does the federal look like? U.S. Department of Labor has all of this great stuff on this beautiful website just for you to look at, so you can see how everything is going, what minimum wage is, what the Family Medical Leave Act is, and Fair Labor Standards Act, and all of these great things that you need to know. Because remember, it's your business. These are laws, these are regulations. You cannot just say, I didn't know, my bad. You have to know this information. And I know that each state is different. So where Chef Jonathan is now, what is your state looking like for your minimum wage and all that good stuff?
So my state, Nebraska, has a $2.13 tipped employee minimum wage. However, their tips have to make up the difference to $8 an hour. If not, you as the owner have to pay the difference. So they need to make at least $8 an hour, but that's accounting for tips. You only have to pay them $2.13 if their whole total for that day or that week adds up to $8 an hour. So they can be tricky that way too.
Yeah. What about you, Chef Greg? Where in Delaware?
It is very, it's very similar to Chef Jonathan's. Something that I've seen in this country a lot that's starting to happen a lot is a lot of places will add in automatic gratuity, and then they'll base the server salaries off of that automatic gratuity. They will tell the guests, like when they present the check, like, just so you know, this includes a 20% gratuity, and then their server salaries are actually based off of that automatic gratuity. They break down the sales, and then they base their rates off of that. So it is just something interesting to see a lot of places going to that.
Yeah. What about in Boston? What was it in Boston? You've been there for a lot longer now than I.
Very good question. So to use Boston as an example, Boston is a major city, just like San Francisco, New York, Boston, Chicago. So without getting into the whole depth of it, all the servers were all unionized. So they were part of a union. They did pay union dues. They had separate health insurance. They had separate everything. So their rates were based on their union contracts. So that's just kind of a whole separate system with rates and how much they get paid. It is very, very high for a union employee. Just for example, like some of our culinary employees, they did make like $22 to $26 per hour. However, our hotel chains did not offer them any benefits at all. So part of that directly went to the union dues, which was their health insurance, 401k, all of that stuff. So when you get into union, it's just a very unique attribute of staffing and paying for a business.
Yeah, and it also brings up great points too, because you need to make certain if you are part of a union, you know the laws and rules set up for the union. And if you have to pay into that union, even if you're not a part of that union, and those kind of things, because it can vary from industry to industry. Now, how many people want to have their own place? Raise your hands. How many people think that you'll be able to put yourself on salary? Raise your hand. Yes, yes. How many think that you can actually be able to work 80 hours and not pay yourself overtime? Yeah, that's the fun of it. In Colorado, you have to pay overtime to salary employees. If they get paid above a certain amount, which I believe was it 55,000, Chef Jonathan did, then you don't have to pay overtime. But if they are under that rate, then you have to pay them overtime. Because a lot of times people get stuck thinking that they will just put certain have their managers on salary, which means that they can work whenever and as many hours as you need them to. But this is why that law was created here, was because at the end of the day, some managers were making $2 an hour for the amount of work that they were putting in. And while that is great, if you want to have that drive and passion, but nobody's going to love your business as much as you do. So that's why it's so important to make sure you know your laws and regulations and you pay people fairly. Because you don't, we already are in an industry that has such a high turnover rate. Don't make it worse by trying to pay them $2 an hour, right? By being overworked and overtired. And scheduling is key, right? You have to make certain that you're actually scheduling people correctly. Say, how many caterers? Do we have caterers in here? Up in here? Not so much? Well, I'll tell you a catering story anyways. My favorite catering story was when I started at 3 in the morning and then went until 11. I started at 6 in the morning and went till 3 a.m. for one day because we had 2 really, really big caterings happening. And the thing that you don't want to do, which is what they did to me, was then scheduling me the next morning at 6 a.m., which is not nice. That's not fair. You don't want to, like, that gives me roughly 2 hours of sleep, right? You don't want to do that to your employees. That's why it's so important to make sure that you are actually looking at your schedule. How many staff do you need? How much time are you going to do in between? All those fun things. Now, I'm going to try right now. I'm going to join from a different computer because we're going to play a little game. We're going to play Kahoot. Yay! What's Kahoot? It's like, you know, a version of, no, I don't know. It's not like Jeopardy. It's not like, it's like Kahoot. We are going to play this, and I'm going to see how well this goes. If it will actually let me get on from here. And I'm going to let Chef Gregory or Chef Jonathan tell you a fantastic tale while I see if my little thing works.
So,
Okay, go ahead.
So when I first was a manager, my first management job, it was really fun, very creative in a family-owned business. However, they had no idea what they were doing. They were real estate owners, and they just decided, I really want to open a restaurant. So I was one of the original employees, and they figured, you know what? John's a hard worker. He knows what he's doing. He's great. Let's have him work 105 hours a week on hourly pay for 3 months straight. Guess what happened to that poor little shift lead John after 3 months of that many hours? I wish I had, Priya. No, I actually injured myself because I was so exhausted. I fell in the shower, and then the company had to keep me on because they were working me to death, and my bank account was enormous because they were paying me overtime for like 60 hours a week. That's time and a half for 60 hours a week. As a business decision, that's one of the worst ones I've ever seen, and it was because of poor planning and poor scheduling. People weren't trained the way they needed to be. The staff wasn't really hired very well. And because of that, they had one employee picking up an insane amount of hours, and it almost caused the business to close in their first 6 months, just because of this guy and the hours that they asked me to work. They didn't realize how much damage it was doing them until I actually got injured on top of all that overtime. So guess what the first thing they did when I came back from being injured was?
Salary.
You got it. You got to be careful with how you're scheduling your employees, because a little bit of overtime here and there isn't going to kill you. But if you're scheduling for overtime, you're already in the hole. You're already in a big problem place, because then that person who's already scheduled for overtime ends up covering other people's shifts who call out. And it's this snowball that never ends. It's a really, really big reason to know your labor and really pay attention to your labor and not overwork your staff, because as Rhea said at first, most people would have just gotten out there.
I will tell a story, not a story. I'll do some cheerleading that's not so scary. So yes, being a chef is definitely a lot of hours. So for an example, I worked for Hyatt Hotels for 10 years. I got to work at 8 hotels, and I got to live all over the country in which they paid for. So it was even better. So my time investment was awesome. I definitely probably averaged 75 hours a week. Of course, there was weeks that were more, and of course, there was weeks that were less. However, I got to see the whole country. I got to meet a ton of people. I got to cook a lot of cool food, and it ended up with me now speaking and hanging out with you guys. So especially when you have your own business, it will be a lot of hours. However, if you've ever heard the statement labor of love, That's the perfect example of that. So, you know, if it's 10 extra hours, or if it's an extra hour a day to make sure everything's clean, just remember that, like, this is your dream. And sometimes you have to spend an extra half hour more to invest in that dream, but it's absolutely, absolutely worth it. Whether you'd like to take my path in hotels or not, that's completely up to you. If you want to own a place, I even respect that well immensely more than my career. Just remember that all this time invested is definitely worth it. That's all I want to say.
All right.
Now games.
Now we're doing games. We're going to try this bad boy out. And I put the link in there for those who wanted to play. Okay, there we go. But just in case, I added myself already. So we can just start, and then you guys tell me what to put. Isn't this going to be exciting? I normally would do it on mine, but it actually has kind of an annoying song that's non-stop, so that's why I put it on a different computer, so that you wouldn't hear that dun 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 dun. In the beginning, I'm like, yeah, it's kind of like a Bollywood movie. Like, this is cool. Like, could use some like dance moves, but then I'm like, I can't talk over that. How are we supposed to pause and like talk about the question? So I'm gonna give you guys. Are you ready? We're gonna do, it's a fun, these ones are so you guys kind of get a feel for what it looks like. How excited are you to be playing this game right now? You're very, can't wait. What are you thinking? I want to go home. These are your options. I'm gonna say, can't wait. And look, I was right. Yay! And it comes up green if you can, there's like a glare so you can't see, but it's actually green that showed that I got it right. And then, so you guys kind of see what it looks like, then we'll do the next one. Yay, I got points. And it is a tragedy that I cannot wear high heels right now. True or false? I'm gonna say true. And then, as you can see, it is a tragedy. I hurt my knee. I can't wear high heels. I have such pretty ones too. So we're actually going to get into it. And I want you guys to tell me what we should actually put for an answer. So for those who are ready to get unmuted, we're gonna play. Now is the time to actually talk because we're gonna do this, right? So unmute yourself and get ready. Are you ready? And then you're gonna tell me which one to do. The rules and principles that help define what is right and what is wrong. Is that laws, morale, ethics, or experience?
Ethics.
Ethics.
Ethics. You're correct. We talked about it last week. Look at you guys go. See? That's what we're going to do. Started off with an easy one for you guys. Okay. And next. The act of treating people unequally for reasons that do not relate to their abilities. Is that diversity, discrimination,
Discrimination.
Discrimination. Yay! That's the whole part of being in labor. You have to make sure that you know your discrimination laws so that you treat everybody equally. It's very, very important. And you don't want that to come back at you either. This is your business. You don't want this to be an issue. And it's especially true for higher chains such as a delightful hotel chain that Chef Gregory worked for. Why can I not think of it?
Hyatt Hotels.
Hyatt, thank you. Yes. All right. You guys ready? Ready for the next one? Each employee is unique, thus fostering acceptance and respect extending to customers and vendors. Is that diversity, discrimination, labor laws, Equal Employment Opportunity Act?
EOA.
I think it's equal.
Equal?
Employment.
But it was diversity because
It's
you want to
diversity?
you want to make certain that you have a diverse group of people that are actually working for you. That goes from different cultures that they may come from, different age range for the generation. different educations, all that kind of stuff can help come together and create a really, really great experience and a great, great environment for your business. All right. Next one. What is the advantage of practice from promoting from within? You're going to promote somebody from within. Is it?
Rewards employees for good performance.
Yeah.
Yep. Rewards employees for good performance. Yes. That is the great thing about it. You want to be able to give people their props. If they did a great job, you want to give them props where it's due, right? Okay. You ready? What kind of recruiting is it when a restaurant works with a school to sponsor an externship program? Is it internal recruiting method, promoting from within, external recruiting method, or what do you guys think? External? Yes, it is. And I put that one in there just for you guys because I wanted to make certain that you guys remembered your externship. We talked about it last week, and I wanted to make sure we went over it again this week. So remember, externship. If you guys haven't done it yet, get on top of that. Make sure that you have it done. Right? Yes, chef, that'd be great. I definitely need to make sure I got that done.
One day they had a meeting, and Eric, he's one of the advisors, and he was on with students, and he was talking about the externship and everything.
Yeah, perfect. And that's why we're bringing it up again, because I want to make sure that you guys get that externship going, get the paperwork done, so you are ready to go. All right, next one. What does EEOC stand for? Is it Equal Employment Observation Community?
Equal Employment Opportunity Commission.
Equal Employment Opportunity Commissions. Correct. What do they do? What do you guys think they do?
Make sure that it's across the board is fair for employment. You know, it's not no discrimination and stuff like that.
Exactly. Isn't this a fun way to learn some fun labor laws? Yay! Okay. At will relates to the idea that the employee or employer can end the relationship at any time. Is that true or false?
True.
True. You are correct. That is what at will means. Your state may not be at will. You have to check. I live in Colorado. I live in an at will state. So that means I can leave if I want to, or my boss could fire me. And they don't need to give any explanation. They could just say, we're good, you can bounce. What is it for chefs? What do you guys have? Do you know what your state's?
Same, chef.
Is it?
Yes.
Honestly have not been in Nebraska long enough to have needed to look into it, but I will figure that out.
Yeah, well, I kind of figured you still remember stuff from Fort Collins. You should have seen Chef Jonathan when he was like, go here and go there for when my Wi-Fi went down. I was like, oh yeah, he knows all these different places. It was great.
Minnesota's at will.
What is it? I'm sorry, say it again.
Minnesota is at will.
Is it at will? Yeah.
It is, yep.
Yeah, it's a good thing to know. So it's very important because some places are not, and you may have to make sure that you actually have like a reason behind the firing. You can't just fire people for fun. All right, let's go on to an informal invitation to become an employee of an establishment. Is that a job offer, contingent, background check, or interview?
Job offer.
Job offer, yes. That is that formal invitation that says, yes, we want you to come work for me. And it's good to do that formal invitation because you can set all of the stuff in there that the actual employee is going to be doing, because you don't want to run into that problem of hearing, well, that's above my pay grade, or I'm not getting paid to do that. Because I have definitely heard that before. I don't know about you guys, chefs, where you've heard that employee go, well, I'm not getting paid to do that, you know, and I bring in my East Coast sassiness for it.
I'm always very careful about how I word those job descriptions to basically say whatever the chef needs doing, helping, assisting in the kitchen as needed, something to that effect that allows me to say, hey, need you to jump in here. But if I don't, then they're absolutely within their rights to be like, you said do the dishes, that's what I'm doing.
How about you, Chef Greg? Have you
I have a lot of experience with a lot of occurrences in that instance. I'll give a piece of advice, however. When you have to have like counseling with an employee, even if it's your own business, however, document everything. Document it that you had that conversation. This was the date. This was the time. They kept burning the French fries. You had a counseling conversation with them one-on-one in the office, like, hey, look, you know, we pay a lot for the French fries. It holds up service, and we just really need to look at our timing. Document that down. So in a progressive system, if that keeps happening, then you document it again, and then you sign it, and then they sign it. So you're both acknowledging it. So just document anything if you ever have employee-related issues. That's my recommendation.
And it's a very good one, and it's something you should do. So thank you, Chef Gregory, because yeah, that one's a very, very important one. Sometimes it's even good to have a third person in there to make certain that what is being said is being heard by a neutral party. So that, and that's usually your HR person, right? But if you're a small business and don't have an HR person, you need to have somebody else do that, right? So let's see what the next one is. You guys ready? You excited? What document demonstrates that an employee is legally able to work in the United States? The I-9, passport, birth certificate, voter's registration.
I would say
Is it the I-9?
You are correct. It is the I-9. Yay! Look at you guys go. But that's very important. That's the thing that you actually need to fill out, and that shows and proves that you are legal, because on that form you have to give them your birth certificate or your social security or your passport. Like, you actually have to put that information into the I-9 to show and to prove that you are able to legally work here. All right. Which are the most critical documents to be completed and produced in the new hiring process? Is it benefits, enrollment forms, emergency contact, payroll, or none of the above?
Payroll.
Payroll. You're correct, because if you don't fill out the payroll, then they can't start working. That's the most important thing. You got to pay them. You can't just say, oh, well, don't worry about it. You can do that information later. We'll just get this week over with, and then I'll pay you later. No, you got to pay them. You got to start right then and there. All right. And then confidential file contains documents related to hiring, training, evaluating, and disciplining. Is that a personnel file, labor file, none of the above, public information file?
Personnel file.
Yes, personnel file. But you do have to remember that while this stuff is in here, you can't put the, like, any health issue related information you may get. That does not go into that file, because this file can be seen by managers, and that's type of personal information that you should not share. That only is seen by, like, the one main HR person that deals with your health stuff, or the manager, owner. Yes, Chef Jonathan. You look like you're gonna say something.
Finish your thought. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say we're gonna be talking about how many of these you're gonna have in your concept pretty soon here. So really good things to know, these personnel files.
Yeah, I know, right? Isn't that great? And zero tolerance policy is a policy that allows no amount of or type of harassing behavior. Is that true or false?
True. True.
You're correct. Zero tolerance means you can't just say, like, you know, you can't just hit on people for fun. Zero tolerance is zero tolerance. All right. And employee meals can be seen as a benefit. Is that true or false? The truth. You are correct. That is a benefit. Health benefits, those are different laws that you have to make certain that you are following, right? Because we have our federal laws for health care that you need to follow. How many hours does somebody have to work in order to be allowed to have health care?
32 or more.
32 or more for how many months consistent?
I don't know. Some places it's the first 90 days. After that, or the first month. After the first month, then they get into the insurance.
Yeah. It's usually within that 3 months. You know, now different employers will do something different, but you have to make certain that you're following the law when it comes to that stuff. And you also need to remember, like, meals, that's a benefit, and vacation is seen as a benefit. That is not a requirement. So you don't have to give somebody vacation. So that also means that somebody can also take it away from you as well, which actually happened to me. We had vacation and the people were not properly tracking it, so they took it away from everybody, which isn't great if you have 6 weeks of vacation saved up for your big trip. Then all of a sudden, 2 weeks before, you find out you don't have it anymore. That's not going to make your employees happy, right?
Chef, Jennifer has her hand raised for a question, please.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I just lost my train of thought, honestly.
That's okay.
You were talking about benefits, and I was just curious to know about something that literally just escaped my mind. I worked for Chico Hot Springs. Crap. I'll come back to it if I remember it. Sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah, think about it and then come back. All right. Employee meeting held before the work shift to discuss plans, details, and training info. Is that a pre-meeting shift, post-shift meeting? I hate meetings. What do you think it is?
Pre-shift.
Pre-shift.
Correct. And pre-shifts are key. You want to be able to schedule people correctly so that if Manuel is working the line and then Jennifer comes in, maybe Manuel be able to tell her, hey, the refrigerator, like the reach-in broke. So I had to call such and such, or we had this problem with the food, or any type of issue that may come up, or something that happened. You want to make certain that you have that overlap so that people know what's going on.
Chef?
Yes.
When we're talking about pre-shifts and schedules, Chef Jonathan is going to show us for everybody this week's assignment, the schedule, and then he is going to explain, like visually explain for you guys if you do need a pre-shift, and also he's going to explain about breaks also. Breaks is a whole nother thing that he is going to explain for us, and you have to have that for your employees.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yep.
Let's do, I think we have time for one more. Do we have time for one more?
Of course, absolutely.
Yeah, let's do one more. See where you guys at. What is the first step in progressive discipline process? Do you do an oral warning, written warning, termination, or probation? What would you guys do?
Oral warning.
Oral warning is usual key, but like Chef Gregory brought up, keep that stuff in writing. It is important, especially depending on how bad the situation was, because you never know, and it may go from, oh, Chef Gregory, next time just use olive oil instead of canola oil, and that's not a big deal. You can do a little oral, like a little tidbit like, hey, just so you know, do that instead. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. But it's like, hey, don't try to, you know, I don't know, a good one. Don't try to, I got nothing. All the ones are too extreme that I don't think would go well for a live session. So, you know.
To give you guys an example, if you're going to use olive oil for a thing, if you guys were like, you know, making your own dressings and you plan on using like canola or vegetable oil, one, so it didn't coagulate, and two, for a price cost. And if you kept telling the people the olive oil is for finishing dishes and topping dishes, and somebody consistently kept making the salad dressing with olive oil, your cost would go up. You would coagulate if you put it into the cooler, and also it's not your recipe and what you had intended for your cost. So that would be something you could progressively coach somebody on.
Yeah, perfect. And I think at this point we should switch over to the assignment. I'm going to stop sharing here.
Before we do, Ria's had her hand up for a little bit here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Also, wouldn't the oral warning also pertain to the severity of whatever the person did? Because some things they do, you cannot just do an oral warning. You're going to have to counsel them and have them sign the paper that they were told because it cost that much, or it ended up injuring someone, or something, you know, whatever the gravity of the problem is. So that way, if it happens again, then that's grounds for automatic dismissal.
Mm-hmm. That is a extremely, extremely good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Something about that, if it's ever like bullying, harassment, physical or verbal violence, anything of those like extreme things automatically goes to written. And when you're hiring people, if you want to put together your own little handbook for themselves, presenting like, you know, we are zero tolerance, that would be the opportunity right out in front to get that out. They know the expectation, they signed it, and you can go directly to written or possibly termination, depending on that severity.
All right.
Sarah, you're up.
Okie dokie. So I'm just going to share my screen real quick. And so here's your week 3 assignment page. It's got a great description right here of what you're going to do. More importantly, this link right here is where you're going to get the template for your assignment. So super important you go to the assignment description page, because otherwise you won't be able to find that template. So once you make a copy of that, it's going to look just like this one. First thing you want to do is your concept summary. I hate taking points off for not having your concept summary. It can be the exact same one from your week 2 assignment. Just 1 or 2 sentences letting me know what your concept is all about. If you're a food truck, if you're a catering company, if you're a restaurant, what type of cuisine, what are your service hours? We are going to be serving from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. And the size of your restaurant. These are really important pieces of information in that concept summary because they all apply to your schedule and how many employees you're actually going to have. So up here, one other thing I want to mention real quick is if I say, whenever I type my concept summary up in here, I'm going to get this warning. That's totally fine. Just hit OK, and it'll go past it. No worries there. In this column here, all you have to do is list out each position you're going to have in your concept. So the first person that should be on every single one of these schedules is you. You want to make sure that you are on the schedule, that you are not scheduling yourself for a burnout schedule, which, by the way, anything over 60 hours is too many hours to be on the schedule, because chances are as a salaried manager, you're going to work more hours than you're actually scheduled for. Chef Greg and Chef Rachel, I'm sure, can back me up on this. If you're scheduled as a manager for 60 hours, you're probably working 70 to 80. So we don't want to see anything above 60 hours for those salaried managers. So instead of saying me, tell me what your role in your business is going to be. So you're going to be the owner. If you're also going to be the executive chef, let me know. So it can be owner, executive chef. And then you're going to fill out what time you're going to get in every day. So let's say you're coming into work at noon. So you'll just scroll down and choose noon. And then let's say you're out at 10 p.m. You'll just choose 10 p.m. So the first box is the time that you're in on Sunday, and the second box is when time you're out on Sunday. This third box in pink lets you know how many hours you're working that day. With the way that this spreadsheet is set up, if you are scheduling somebody for 6 hours or more, it's going to automatically take a half an hour lunch break out of that day, because you're not going to be paying your employees for a half an hour lunch break if they're working 6 or more hours. So it's already going to do that for you. You still don't want to schedule more than 5 8-hour shifts in a week, because you want to have that little bit of buffer. Chef Rachel, did you have something you wanted to mention?
I just wanted to give Chef Jonathan props here for doing that for you guys. He actually created this whole thing for you, so it would actually do that. I mean, the size of that formula is intense, and he did that for you guys. So you should definitely do a shout out and give him thanks and props for doing that for you.
Thank you, Chef. So basically, you'll just go through each day of the week for each employee, getting your time in and time out for every single day. If you're going to have the same schedule 5 days a week, there's an easy way to copy that information. If you select those 2 boxes and just hit Control-C, you can just click on the time in box on Monday and hit Control-V, and it just copies that information right over to that next person. Make sure you're only grabbing that time in and time out for Sunday, for Monday, whatever the case may be. So, coming down this column, you're going to not only have your back of house staff, but also your front of house staff. So let's say you're a restaurant. You're probably going to have a chef, a sous chef, some cooks, maybe a prep cook. In front of house, you're going to have some kind of front of house manager. You might even have a general manager as well. And then you're going to have bussers and bartenders and barbacks and servers and dishwashers, and anybody who you're going to have in your concept should be listed down the side here. And you want to make sure you have both front and back of house. If you're going to be a food truck, you should have at least one person who is specifically handling money. You need to have at least one person cooking and one person handling money. You really can't do the same thing at the same time, because every time you touch a dollar bill, you've got to wash your hands. Every time you take a credit card, every time you touch a point of sale system, every time you do anything other than food, you got to wash your hands. So it's really unfeasible to be able to be doing both at the same time and still serving safe food. So we want to see at least 2, probably 3 people for a food truck, maybe even more. With your time in and time out, food trucks take longer to get set up before service than restaurants, because you got to not only prep the food and get it all ready to go, then you've got to load it from your commissary kitchen into your food truck and then drive to the location where you're going to be serving. So you want to build that extra time in. No matter what your concept is, you should have time before you open and time after you close to get things set up and to get things broken down at the end of the day. This sheet does another really cool thing for you. It adds up how many hours each employee is working every week. So right now I just have these 2 days scheduled, but it shows me working 19 hours a week. Finally, the last piece of this is to pay your employees. This is where that research comes in. So I looked up my state requirements. I looked up my minimum wage for both front of house and back of house employees. And I figured out that for a salaried rate, I want to be making $60,000 a year. So in order to figure out how much I'm going to pay, I'm going to use this formula right here, because this is a weekly salary rate. So I'm going to take that $60,000 a year, divide it by 52, and that gives me my weekly salary, $1,154. So you'll just punch that in there, and there. That's for your salaried employees. For your hourly employees, you're just going to have something in this column. And let's say you're going to pay your sous chef $10 an hour. That will just go there. You only want a number in the yellow column or the green column, not both. So, just as an example, this is a completed schedule. And by the way, I'm going to be answering questions in just a sec. I know I'm moving quickly. We're just running out of time here. So, I've got my concept summary at the top. Opening an American-style restaurant with 200 seats. Open from 5 to 9, Tuesday through Sunday in Omaha, Nebraska. I've got all the information I need to get going on this schedule. So I've got 2 managers. I've got these sous chefs who can also act as managers if one of those other managers is not in the building. Remember, you always want to have a manager in the building at all times that anyone else is there. So my executive chef, myself, and my front of house manager are both on salary. Everybody else on this schedule is on an hourly rate, and they're all working less than 40 hours a week. Okay. One other quick thing. If you're a private chef, you're going to have a client who says, I want to throw a party, and you're going to cook for them because you're my chef. Do this schedule as though it's going to be that week where you're throwing that big party. Schedule your servers, schedule your help in the kitchen, the people who are going to help you get all this wonderful food out to your clients' guests. If you're a catering company, you should be scheduling a few days ahead of time to start getting ready. No matter what the concept is, we want to see more than one person there. Questions? That was a lot of information in a short amount of time, I know, but the archive.
Question. If you say you're just going to have like maybe 4 employees, is that okay?
Depends on your concept. What's your concept, Rhea?
I'm having a breakfast cafe. So it would be 2 cooks, the front person, and the other person's going to be taking care of the coffee, tea, and all that stuff like that. So is that good?
Well, you're also going to have yourself, right? You're the owner, so you're the manager.
Yes, it's going to be myself and another cook. Right. So.
Okay. So who's going to be watching the front of house area while you're watching the back of house?
That person that's up front, that's taking care of the point of sales, like that. And then you have the other person behind the counter taking care of the coffee, tea, beverage type stuff, and whatever else.
If you have a small concept, it's okay to have a small staff. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. However, you want to make sure that you really thought through everything that needs to be done, and you always have that manager on duty. And when that manager on duty is not working a day, who's in charge? Oh. They better be getting paid to be in charge too.
So that means I would have to have somebody else as a manager on days that I'm not there.
Yep. If you're going to be open 7 days a week, you need at least 2 managers. And that's assuming you're only open for 1 shift every day.
Right, yeah, because it's going to be like from 7 to 3. So that's it.
Which is another really big, I'm glad you brought that up. So when you're making these schedules, everybody needs at least 1 day off. Even if you're scheduling them for 2 hours every day,
okay,
they cannot work 7 days a week. Everybody needs a day off.
Okay, all right, all right, thank you.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, could you explain about the food truck? Because my concept is with a food truck with only myself and 2 more people. And it's only from Monday to Friday from 11 o'clock. I'm only serving lunch, and it's 11 o'clock to 3 o'clock. So do I need to give somebody time off there with only that short time?
Well, if you're going to be 5 days a week, they're already getting days off because
Right.
other 2 days.
Right.
What you do want to be careful of is remembering the amount of time before and after service.
Right.
Get set up and to get it closed down.
Okay.
Because remember, after you close up shop, after you stop selling food, you still have to drive back to your venue, clean the truck, load the truck out into your commissary kitchen. There's a lot to be done on a food truck at the end of the day. So just keep that in mind.
So I can still have them working for, say, 6 hours, or is because it, the time for serving will be, as I said, 11 to 3, but then say probably 3 more hours after closing and 3 hours before opening or something like that. So add all that time together, and then that's how I pay them. That's how I make the salary, right? Okay.
Yeah. So with your concept, if you only have a few employees, you should only have one salaried manager, and it's going to be you. In a concept like a food truck, you should be the only salaried manager. You should have at least 4 hourly employees for every salaried manager.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions, guys?
You also have to remember, Paul, like your marketing. You have to do your books, you have to do accounting, you have to do your marketing. So that's time that you have to pay yourself also. So people, it's very easy to get in there and think about all the cooking that you're going to be doing and that stuff, but there's a lot of other like bookkeeping and administrative work that you need to also pay yourself for. Is there any other questions? Anybody?
I have one more.
Wouldn't it be cheaper to just hire an accountant so that way you make sure your books are straight?
Most of the time, it's a really good idea to hire the accountant in addition to spending the extra hours. Most businesses do. Even small mom and pop restaurants still have an accountant, even though they're spending hours every day on their books. There's a lot to be done there, and it's complicated work, so it's always good to have somebody who really knows what they're doing checking your work.
Yeah, IRS.
Yeah. Yep.
If behind the music taught us anything, it's to pay your taxes. So
I have one more quick tip for you guys who are doing restaurants. In general, you're looking at one server for roughly 4 tables, or about every 15 seats you should have a server. Just knowing that can sometimes throw people off.
are there any other questions?
Nope, just one more. Jennifer, please go ahead first.
Sorry.
No, don't be.
Reading Chef Rachel's thing, and I'm actually getting kind of confused because I know that most holidays we actually get not very many places actually give you the day off. I'm actually working it the first time ever at a place that I actually have tomorrow off. But in turn, they don't do the holiday pay. That's why I was asking if it is considered a benefit or not. Because they don't even really recognize it, I guess, is what I'm saying.
And then it'll really just depend on your location, and then if they consider it like a federal holiday or not, whether depending on if you're going to actually, like, you may still have to work, but they may pay you overtime then for working, that kind of thing. And like, I mean, I've always worked Thanksgiving. I mean, running a bed and breakfast, people stayed with us. We're in the industry where when everybody's playing, we're working. And that's just kind of how it is for us. So it's the first Thanksgiving I actually had off because I was teaching. None of our family invited us anywhere because they all assumed that we were still working. So, I'm sure that Chef Jonathan and Chef Greg have been in that scenario. So yeah, it's just that part of, making certain that you are looking at the laws and regulations. And that's where those websites like the Federal Bureau of Labor, like those ones will help you determine what you need to pay and not pay and do and not do.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? Nobody else? All right. Well, guys, I hope you have a fabulous Thanksgiving.
Yes, absolutely. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
I hope everybody had fun playing Kahoot.
Thank you.
Same to you.
And then have fun, eat a bunch of turkey, enjoy yourself. Don't go too crazy and, camp out for Black Friday deals if you guys camp out for Black Friday deals or not. I know people still do that where if they have the long line going, get that TV. And then remember, we had our assignment due. What time? Remember that quiz?
11:59.
Yep, Tuesday, 11:59. And then when's our next live session?
Thursday, 7:30.
Thursday, 7:30. All right. And Chef Connor?
One more quick thing. We are taking a holiday too. So if we're a little slower on getting feedback to you on your assignments, please bear with us. It will absolutely be graded
Understandable.
over the weekend at some point. But just keep that in mind. The late deadline, if you have not already gotten it in, is still tomorrow night. So if you haven't already gotten your assignment in, do it tonight so you don't have to work tomorrow on Thanksgiving. That was it.
All right, guys. Well, I'm going to stop recording, and I hope everybody has a fabulous rest of your week and a great holiday.
Thanks, Jeff. You too.
Thank you.
Bye.